I'm going to assume that we are streaming now, but I'm also going to ask that we are recording from producer Rob. In that note, welcome to Booked All Night, the podcast for book lovers, storytellers, and everybody in between. We are joined today by Brooklyn Quintana to talk about her Fynneas Fog series, which is already out and available for purchase, so you don't have to wait like we normally do for these interviews. And just a reminder to everyone who is watching the stream, we only take questions from our Discord server in the appropriate forums. So visit bookedallnight.co to join today so you don't miss the opportunity to ask our next guest a question. So, welcome, Brooklyn. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, it's exciting. I love doing author interviews, they're always so much fun. Just to get us started officially, can you give us a quick pitch about the books to let the listeners know what's up?
Of course. So right now there are 2 books in the series currently out. Book 3 comes out this year. There's planned to be 9. The Fynneas Fog series is a fun adventure, classic fantasy vibes. There's no like romantasy in it, but think for book 1, it's Jumanji meets Pirates of the Caribbean with Hunger Games with a fun, Gothic castle setting, kind of a la Harry Potter.
That is a combination of references.
I feel like it sets the tone appropriately. There's they're in a school. It's like a survival game because it's a military academy, and it's also on a tropical island filled with enchantments and monsters and things that will definitely kill you.
Lovely. Absolutely lovely. I'm just going to check our Discord really fast. I saw somebody threw one extra question in there. All right, I will ask that in a little bit. Okay, so the first thing I want to go through, I'm changing up our interview format just a little bit. We're going to get started with a really quick lightning round game of some superlatives. I'm just going to give you, character most likely to XYZ, and you're going to tell me who. There's only 5 of them, so it'll go really quick. Are you ready?
I'm totally ready.
Okay, so the first one is most likely to start a sword fight just to feel something.
Oh, Prince Holland, 100%.
Okay. Most likely to crown themselves ruler of a doomed planet.
Probably also still Prince Holland.
Most likely to have a sword with its own personality.
Oh, definitely our boy Finn.
Our boy Finn. Most likely to survive a haunted space station.
Again, Finn.
And the last one is most likely to kiss an enemy mid-battle.
Oh, that's so hard. Probably the character of Mariah.
Mariah, lovely. So I'm actually going to get started with this first question from Gabby, who just popped into our server today. Gabby is a Libranaut on the Discord server. She asks, I think we all love the magical creatures in your book, from mermaids to Buttons the Bat. Are there more magical creatures we have yet to encounter in book 1 that may be in book 2? And I guess 3, since that comes out this year.
Awesome question. Thank you, Gabby. Yeah, there's a lot more magic and mischief coming up. I don't want to give like too much away, but there's in book 2, we've got some talking worms and skeleton horses and skeleton birds that also can talk. And then book 3, I can't say anything in book 3. It would kind of give away the whole plot. But yeah, there's definitely some more monsters and magic and creatures to come that you haven't seen yet.
Lovely. We love monsters and creatures and things that blend genres here. Our next question is also from a Libranaut on the server and a former guest of the podcast, Arlo Z. Graves. Arlo would like to know more about the surreal setting of your books and also requests that you pet Major Tom.
So Major Tom is in the other room right now,
Oh no!
trying to be on his best behavior. For people who don't know, Major Tom is my German Shepherd. He's not just a man trapped in my house. He's trying very hard to be quiet. Normally he barks in these things. Also, normally I'm in my office, so he has free reign to walk in here. But oh my God, what was the original question?
The original question was Arlo would like to know more about the surreal setting of your books.
So there is a place between places. It's a place between life and death where certain characters are capable of lingering, where they are able to essentially think of it like the classic like sci-fi ether, where they are able to walk around and kind of extrapolate information from areas or times and worlds that they're not currently physically in. And then in book 2, there's more of a surreal aspect that is very much kind of tapped in from my love of Salvador Dali and Pink Floyd, which is in itself, I think, an absolutely metal combination.
Mm-hmm.
But that's kind of where we get the talking worms and the skeleton horses, where it's very topsy-turvy, MC Escher painting-esque, but think of it on fire instead of there being just stairs. So I also can't talk too much about it because it gives away a big plot twist from book 2, but I really enjoy injecting a bit of absurdist and surrealist art aesthetic kind of into writing, because I think that's not something that's done too frequently, at least not anymore.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I love reading surrealist things where it's just so weird and can be applied to so many things, and you just kind of come in and you're like, did I have too much cough syrup before I read this, or like what's going on?
Exactly.
And that, I think that's the most fun you can have as a writer, the most fun you can have as a reader, is when things are all topsy-turvy and you're just trying to figure out what's going on, and then you finally kind of get your feet back on the ground. You're like, okay. And it's so satisfying to figure out what's going on in those sort of settings, I think.
I think one of the best parts about writing settings like that, and that I enjoyed so much, especially in book 2, is that there's no wrong answer, and it's such a unique setting and unique scenario to put your character in that nobody can really compare it to other things that are coming out, especially right now, because it's not as popular to do that kind of a setting. And it's fun because you have so much free reign and so much kind of artistic license to play with whatever you want. So I will say, one of the settings that I don't think would give anything away is the pit of despair. So Finn literally falls into a grave and he can't reach the bottom until he reckons with that. He realizes he physically can hit the bottom when he emotionally understands that he is at his lowest point, and then has to climb down in order to climb back up, essentially. And I think that's very, I don't know if you want to call it Lewis Carroll-esque, falling through the rabbit
Yes.
hole kind of, but a little bit more depressing because it's a bit of despair. But I think it's such a fun and unique way to explore not only a really fun world filled with interesting and very colorful and vibrant characters and personalities, but also Finn's internal struggles through that book and where he's going. So the setting's very complementary to the character.
I like that. I like that. We've touched on it a little bit about what kind of makes the book stand out. And I do want to say, fantasy, especially now, is a pretty heavily saturated genre in publishing. So what are some key points from Nine of Swords and Blood in the Water that make Phineas's story stand out from other fantasy novels?
I think one of the main things, and I don't want this to ever, I've said it on other podcasts, and I don't want it to ever come across like I'm judging other people's reading, because I'm just happy people are reading to begin with. So if you're reading and picking up books, fantastic, keep doing it. By the way, pick up mine. But I just think right now the fantasy genre, because of mainly book talk, I think, has been so overrun with romantasy. And it's romantasy, romantasy, romantasy. And I wanted to write, when I set out writing, romantasy wasn't yet such a big thing, but I wanted to write a story that I wanted to read as an adult, and a story that I would want to read, as a teenage me. We're very similar people. I didn't change that much. So I wrote a classic, coming of age, Bildungsroman type story about Finn. And, it doesn't have the, people want to compare it to Harry Potter, but it doesn't have the overarching, Lord Voldemort's coming back, we have to get ready. There is no big bad, really. It's because there's no big bads in life. It's your situations create a big bad, but it can be overcome. Yes. So it's a very character-driven, very plot-driven classic fantasy, which I think is kind of a mashup of two things you don't specifically see, because usually if you have character-driven, it's more of literary fiction. Classic fantasy is very much, we got to throw the ring into Mount Doom or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think those two things kind of go really well together, because there are creatures and magic would naturally lead some people to want to have power, which would create a problem. So you have the inherent stepping stones to a regular fantasy that everybody would know about. But then I think the medieval setting also is very overdone, but it's on a tropical island. So it's different. You have knights, but there's vibrant colors and palm trees and seagulls. And I think that kind of juxtaposition of two things is a very fun, unique setting. And then in the fact that usually when you have a coming of age story, I'm going to toss it back to Harry Potter, because that's clearly my favorite. You have Harry's kind of bland. You know,
Yes.
he doesn't really develop a super strong personality through the books because you're supposed to be experiencing the world through Harry. Finn is not bland. Finn has a very distinct personality, and when handed similar tropes and plot contrivances that Harry is handed, behaves completely different. You know, Harry gets the mystery of like, who's Nicholas Flamel? What is the Sorcerer's Stone? Finn gets a mystery about this book that's very important in book one, and they're just straight up is like, I don't care. I don't like mysteries. This is too much brain power. Not my thing. I don't even like reading. And just like hands it off to his sister to go like figure out off screen entirely. And then you're just like, oh, that's the kind of kid he is. He gets into trouble and he is arrogant and he's very unapologetic about both of these things. And he has a very strong sense of self. And then when you like turn it into the YA trope, Finn is not fighting the system. He's a prince. He's cool with the system. Finn does not, you know, buck authority. Finn like actively seeks out the adults in his life to try and explain things, and then everybody's just purposely vague to upset him, essentially. So he's kind of the antithesis of what you've seen in, you know, 20th and 21st century young adult fiction. He, you know, has a personality. He doesn't want to, you know, start a rebellion. Finn is very happy for things to stay the way they are, and it's just unfortunate that that is not the world he is living in.
I love two major points out of that. All of it, obviously, but two major points. One, the comparison to Harry Potter, because problems with Harry Potter and J.K. Rowling aside, almost every single fantasy comp title is Harry Potter. And it has always bugged the crap out of me because I'm like, okay, like it'll always have a special place in my heart as the series that made me a reader, but there are other fantasy titles, and I need to know that there are people in publishing looking at other fantasy titles and not just like, well, it's just like Harry Potter. And then the other bit about, oh no, I forget what I was talking about. That's not good to do while we're live.
Okay, it happens all the time to me.
All the time the thought train just goes.
Yep, out of the station.
Yep. Yep, it's gone. It'll come back to me later. It
No
absolutely will.
worries.
Yeah. I'm just gonna move on to the next question, and then later in the interview, I'm just gonna blurt out what I remembered I was talking about. It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah, anytime.
Yeah. So you said in an interview with Voyage YA that Nine of Swords explored grief and depression. So how do those themes shape these characters and their relationships?
So I think it's really important when you have stories about young characters and tragic things do happen that it's not water off a duck's back. These are, you know, in book one, Finn starts out at 12 years old. So he's in a very adult world because it is medieval, but he has to deal with things that would be very harsh on any 12-year-old and is very harsh on him because he's very, very sensitive. And, you know, it very much shapes him. So all of the things that happen throughout the book, he doesn't just move on from, like, he actively has something really bad happens in the first 5 chapters. And you think Finn's kind of shaking it off and he's handling it so well and so stoically for a 12-year-old. And then somebody points it out and he's like, I have just been actively trying to ignore that this bad thing has happened to me, and just suffers so badly from what you would almost call like PTSD throughout the series when he has reminders of it and he just shuts down. And he's, you know, so talented at fighting and combat, and he's like a natural at all of these things, and he's a very charismatic kid and all the other kids like flock to him. So you can't have a character like that who's just going to, you know, take everything as it is and keep going, and he's going to be too perfect. So the realistic version is that, you know, he does have all of these talents and he does have all of these skills and everybody does look to him, but he also is 12 and he's seen like horrific things happen at this point. And even into book 2, when he's a little older, he's 14 and it's still with him, and he still has hangups about certain things that his friends are like, well, you got to get through this because we have other things you need to be doing. And he just can't, and he has to sit with it and work through it. And a lot of book 2 has been kind of overcoming a lot of the trauma that he suffered from the ending of book 1, as well as many things that happened in book 1. And he's trying to get over it because he's really kind of realized that he is, you know, him and Holland side by side are the ones who are going to have to lead the charge. Mm-hmm. It's who they are. It's kind of what they're kind of stuck being as the princes. And whereas Holland is very much the foil to Finn in many ways and handles things much better with compartmentalization. At least he has nervous breakdowns also, but he hides it better. Finn just straight up cries sometimes, and he just has to be like, I'm having a cry, give me a minute. And then he goes back to his badassery. It's fine. But I think it's very important to delve into those aspects of a character, especially when they are so young, because later in the series, as he's getting older and older and older, and he's an adult by book 3, you know, that stays with you. You're not going to be fundamentally the same person before something horrific happens that you are when you're older. And then how you process it when you're in your adolescence versus your early adulthood is going to be different. So I think that dynamic change within Finn of how he processes these awful things that are happening throughout the series, I think is something that was really important for me to explore.
I think that's really great because especially for like the younger side of kid, like you said in the first book, he's 12, so it's like middle grade ish. A lot of the time in middle grade literature, they'll be like, "Oh, something terrible happened," and by the end of the chapter, we're through it and we're not thinking about it anymore. And I'm like, but that's not a healthy way to kind of put that forth into the world, especially when the audience, who is a young audience, is going to be looking at literature as ways to deal with their own issues. And so modeling these things is very important. Honestly, regardless of the age category that you're writing in, I think a lot, even some of the adult books that we've read recently, they're like, "Oh wow, this character just died." Anyway, and they just move on, and I'm like, but this was like heart-wrenching. Can we have a moment to just kind of sit and feel those things and be uncomfortable with them? And so
Exactly.
yeah, so I'm really glad that we get to sit and be uncomfortable with those feelings in your work.
Yeah, you get to be uncomfortable a lot, especially because Finn and Holland, my main two characters, they're both ruminators, and they ruminate very differently. Finn is a very much, it's my fault, I'm to blame, it should have been me, cry. And Holland is like I will burn your family to the ground for what you have done instead of acknowledge that I am upset about something.
All very healthy approaches
They didn't
to
have therapy back then. That's what we're going with.
And my last questions before we jump into the first official game is that Nine of Swords has been described as both dark and emotional. How do you approach balancing mood, world building, and character development in a story like this?
So I have a multifaceted answer, we'll say. I loved horror growing up my whole life. I've always tended towards I liked Guillermo del Toro movies a lot. Like Pan's Labyrinth is a big inspiration for me. And it's very, very dark, but it's still whimsical. So I try to inject that dark whimsy into the story, but you can't just have, at least in my opinion, a relentlessly sad, overwrought, grief-stricken,
Yeah.
all of the characters are miserable. So whereas I said they do sit with things, Finn also has a good sense of humor and he's very casual and sarcastic for being a prince. And Holland has a mean kind of biting, almost bullyish wit to him. And then, the friend that have in between the two of them is Godric. And Godric is very, despite his name being Godric, would be immediately sorted into Hufflepuff. He's a sweet little cinnamon roll who just gets bullied by the two princes, but is still their buddy. And between the three of them, I think they inject enough humor and personality and levity into situations, as well as the adult characters. There's a very dark sense of humor about them where they straight up constantly, if again, we're going to throw it back to the OG HP, if Dumbledore came in and was like, "Oh my God, this is the safest place in the world," Mariah's just up there and he's just telling people "I will be surprised if all of you make it to the end of the year. Straight up, one of you is at least dying." And it's kind of that understanding and self-awareness, I think, also injects levity amongst everybody because they're "Oh my God, this is so dangerous." So you have this humor amongst the kids of "This is terrible. Why would they put us here?" And all of the adults are "Oh my God, they're all still alive. Look at them go." So you have banter between characters to lighten the mood between, scary things happening. And then obviously, I think throughout the books, I've done it in both book one and book two, at least I hope I have, is in those scenes when the characters are just living life and they're at school and they're not doing a life or death situation. They're still kids. They're having fun. They're with their buddies. They've been together for a while now. They're on a tropical island. That's a cool setting. And they hang out at the tavern down the street and they get into kid mischief. And then obviously, because plots have to happen, kid mischief leads to a plot point. And then the same with the adult characters, you have their interpersonal relationships and their banter and their humor with each other that I think offsets kind of the heavier tone of things. So I think it's a balance. Otherwise it'd be just painful to read 800 pages of people being upset.
Yeah.
That is Dostoevsky levels of depression. We don't want to do that. So
You don't want to read Dostoevsky for 800 depressing pages? That's so silly. That's what I like to do on the
no,
weekends.
I feel like nobody picks up old Russian literature for a good time. It's usually you have a paper to write.
With that note, we are at the first game of the podcast. So, oh, little yawn. I slept like crap last night. It's fine. The first game of the podcast is called Space 'em or Embrace 'em. It comes
Okay.
with a little story attached to it. You are cruising through the galaxy with a cargo full of tropes and cliches when suddenly you have been pulled into a black hole. In order to escape, you'll have to dump some of the cargo, but you don't know how much. And we're going to keep going through the list two at a time until you get out of danger.
Okay.
Yeah. In real terms, I have a list of tropes and cliches. I'm only going to give you two at a time. Your options are to launch them out the airlock or keep them with you. You can absolutely launch every single one of these out the airlock. That is up to you.
Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
But you cannot keep them all. The game is over when you get down to a certain unrevealed number.
Okay.
Okay. So the first two are enemies to lovers and found family.
Enemies to lovers gotta go.
Gotta go. Then we have magic school, but it's deadly, and sword with a tragic backstory.
Well, based on our conversations we've just had, I would like to keep both.
Both. Okay. Brooding, traumatized love interest, and slow burn tension with life or death stakes.
Is the slow burn tension romantic tension or just regular tension?
Just regular tension.
Jeez. I do love a good brooder. I guess I'm going to keep them both.
Okay. Deadly competitions among teens, or everyone has secrets and no one is safe.
This is like feels almost targeted at this point. I would like to keep them both.
Noble houses full of political drama and dramatic declarations of love at the worst time.
Oh, good. We can get rid of dramatic declarations of love. Out the
Okay.
cargo chute.
Okay, we have to keep going through them because you're not down to the numbers. So we have found family and magic school, but it's deadly.
I guess we can get rid of magic school, but it's deadly.
Okay. Sword with a tragic backstory, brooding, traumatized love interest.
Out with the love interest.
Out with the love interest. Slow burn tension with life or death stakes, deadly competitions among teens.
We'll get rid of deadly competition amongst teens.
Okay.
I feel like I got rid of my own book at this point.
Everyone has secrets, no one is safe, and noble houses full of political drama.
I guess we can get rid of noble houses and their drama.
Okay, give me 1 second. I have to count really fast. We have to go through at least one more time. So you have found family or a sword with a tragic backstory.
We'll get rid of the sword.
We'll get rid of the sword. And slow burn tension with life or death stakes, and everyone has secrets, but no one is safe.
We'll keep everyone has secrets.
Okay. So you are finally out of the range of the black hole, and you chose to keep found family, and everyone has secrets. No one is safe.
Yeah, I feel like that sums up my work pretty well.
And then we go back to our lovely questions. And this particular segment is all about writing. So my first question here is, how do you approach writing emotionally heavy scenes without losing sense of the pacing?
I think that's a hard one because when I have an emotionally heavy scene, I'll write it exactly how I feel it, and I'll probably over describe things and repeat things. And then when I go back and I edit, I trim it down. And then when I go back and I edit again, I trim it down. That way everything's still there and the poignant punches are still there, but it's not repeating things like you would if you were naturally having an emotional conversation, because you don't want that repetitiveness in a conversation or an emotional scene to weigh down the pacing and slow it down, but you don't also want to gloss over anything either.
Yeah. What is your relationship with revision? Are you the type to rewrite everything, or do you tend to edit as you go?
I definitely frustrate everybody who knows me and is close to me, because I rewrote the first 5 chapters of book 3 at least 7 times so far, which has really been the reason book 3 has taken so long. But I do both. I revise as I'm going, and if I didn't like a chapter, I'll just straight up throw it away and rewrite it. I don't even bother with revisions, because if it doesn't sit well with me through the night after I wrote it, it's got to go because I'm not happy about it. But I think revision's also really important. So when I go down, I trim a lot of fat out and get out, which I know is insane since the book's 800 pages for book one, but it was longer. So I definitely, I believe in both. I think editing while you go is a bit difficult because you may get bogged down kind of in the nitty gritty of it. But on book three, I feel like I have kind of gotten the hang of it enough that I can self-edit while I'm writing before I go back and do revisions.
That's good. Yeah, I half edit as I go, and I when I was doing my master's thesis and I was writing my book for that, I created so many issues because I edited as I went, and I was like, this is clearly what happened, but my mind was on like draft 2 and not the current draft, and so it was the character's first weekday, month, year of school all at the same time, like just the end of that first day and also that first week and also that first year of school all at the same time. And characters' hair and descriptions no longer matched because I was like, oh yeah, she's gonna have like blonde hair, no brown hair, no purple hair, no this, and like it was just a mess, just an absolute mess, as opposed to if I had just gone through and then made my decisions and went back to rewrite. So that is my public service announcement against editing as you go.
Yeah, it's not, I don't know, it's not my go-to editing style, that's for sure.
Yeah. How do you keep voice consistent when switching between quieter, intimate moments and high stakes action?
I think I have a very strong narrative voice as a writer. So I don't necessarily think it's a problem for me. Like I don't change my writing style from quiet, intimate moment character building to bombastic battles or anything. It's very much consistent. It's the things that are happening and the things that are said and the descriptions that will change and the language that will change, but it very much I think sounds consistent the entire time because I don't know, I guess I've been writing my whole life, so I very much have honed my craft over 31 years now. So I think all that lifelong practice as a kid and a teenager and then getting a degree in writing has sharpened that voice enough to where it doesn't change given the situation. It still sounds like me every time, despite what's going on the page.
Lovely. This last question is also from Arlo Z. Graves, who had the question earlier. And they want to know, do you set hard rules for your worlds or leave them flexible and vague? And then why or why not?
Yes and no. There are hard rules in terms of their social hierarchy and the way that their universe is kind of built up, just given the circumstance of the story. It needed that world building to like, why are we sending the royalty and nobility to like murder death school on Nightmare Island? You needed to have a strong background. And so there's a whole history that actually book three delves more into. But then there's more things that are a bit more loosey-goosey, and it's not because I haven't thought of it, it's just because it would kind of ruin later books. So like the magic system is vague-ish in book 1 and 2, and then by book 4 you have a very concrete reason as to why. And the explanation, like I said, is just you don't want to ruin the reveals from later books. So it's a very soft magic system for book 1 and 2, kind of medium in book 3, and then 4 onward it's a very strong, firm set system of rules.
I like that. Especially because magic systems are so hard to set rules for. And I just, for everyone listening, just understand magic systems are really hard.
Like, yes, be nice to writers. It's hard to come up with this.
It's so hard. And like we want to just be like, well, it's magic and that's the reason, and we can't because it's literature and it all has to make sense, and we're just
it doesn't. I hand wave a lot of things. Like there's straight up orchids with thorns, and my boyfriend has a master's in not herbology, that's Harry Potter again, in something in science with plants. And he was reading a draft and he's like, orchids don't have thorns. I'm like, they're magic orchids. It's perfectly fine. They can have thorns. Let it go. This is not the thing that you should be hung up on. And of all the monsters in magic this man reads, he's like, the orchids with thorns. That doesn't make sense. And I'm like, it's magic. It's a fantasy world. It's fine. They have thorned orchids. We're good. Hand wave.
I always think it's funny about the little things that we pop out of fantasy on. We had read This Fatal Kiss, which everybody should go listen to. That was a really good discussion of ours. It's This Fatal Kiss by Alicia Jasinska. And the magic world is like really very Studio Ghibli-esque kind of
Mhm.
fantasy world. And then all of a sudden there was a bus, and we were like, why is there a bus in this little fantasy world?
Is it
And
a regular bus?
yeah,
Just
is it
like
a
a bus
regular
bus?
bus? Is it a cat bus? Is it what is going on here? And we ended up derailing our conversation for like 20 minutes about how technology might work in this world. And I was like, wait, get back to the book. And it is just funny that like little things will be like, oh well, there's no thorns on orchids. Orchids don't have thorns. And
Yeah.
it it just takes the littlest thing, because the suspension of disbelief that readers have is already this fragile little bubble.
The one that drives me the most, I don't even care if I derail us for a second. Okay, galleons, canuts, and sickles. For a school and society that does not teach you math, why are these things not divisible by 2 or 5 or 10? It's like 7s and 30s. Why? How is anybody paying for anything?
Right?
And that's the one that I'm like, of all the things in the magical world, your money makes no sense.
That and the conversion rate, I'm like, how does this go from muggle money to this? I don't understand.
So I remember I watched a video by the Super Carlin brothers where they broke down the conversion rate between pounds and galleons and sickles and canuts. And if they were right, nobody should be poor in the wizarding world. They should all just convert their money and just have muggle money, because they'd be living as kings. It's insane.
Yeah.
There's no logic in this world either. I still will pick it up every year. I love the books, but still, their money makes no sense.
That actually brings us to game number 2.
Okay.
Okay, game number 2 is Would You Rather Bookish Edition. So, would you rather fight a dragon with a spoon or duel a god against whom you can only inflict paper cuts?
Okay, so I'm a history nerd, so the first thing that came to mind was death by 1,000 cuts. So I'm gonna have to go with duel the god, only give him paper cuts.
Duel the god. Would you rather be wildly successful but only in one country, or be a cult favorite everywhere but never make any money?
Can I ask what country?
You can pick.
Okay, so if I'm gonna go with the United States, we're big and we have a big media industry. So I would just be wildly successful here, and I also live here. So that seems more beneficial to me.
That works, yeah. Would you rather have to live inside your book for a year, or have your characters live with you for a year?
Oh, I totally have them live with me. I would die in my books. I don't want to take part in any of this nonsense, but they'd be fun to have around. Nuisances for sure, but fun.
Would you rather only read series with epic cliffhangers, or books that always spoil themselves in the first chapter?
Cliffhangers.
Cliffhangers. Same. There's no fun when books spoil themselves. Would you rather be the villain everyone loves or the hero everyone hates?
Oh, totally villain everyone loves.
Yes.
They're always having more fun, and they always have better outfits.
It's true. They also almost always get better songs in whatever movie they're in.
Oh, 100%. If I could break out into my villain narrative song with like a leather cape or something on, hell yeah, I'm going villain all the way.
With like a flashy dance number behind you, it'd work. Yeah.
Exactly. I want to be essentially Megamind from the movie Megamind. That's all I want. I'm waiting for that moment in life.
Would you rather write the same book over and over, but it always sells, or write something new every time but never publish?
I guess I'd want my books to sell, so I guess that one. Gotta pay rent, mortgage, insurance.
Yeah, seriously. It is expensive to be alive currently. I would like my work to sell. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yes. Would you rather be trapped in a haunted library or an enchanted forest that talks back?
Can I ask a qualifying question?
Yeah.
is the enchanted library or haunted library haunted with like malevolent ghosts? So like, what do we do? What kind of haunted are we having here?
Let's say it's mostly benevolent ghosts, and there are at least a few poltergeists just there to screw with the peacefulness of the general
I'm
scene.
going library then, yeah.
Yeah, I would not want to be around a forest that talks.
No, I'm not outdoorsy, so I don't want to get stuck in any kind of forest at night. And then now if it's talking back and taunting me for getting lost, I don't want to deal
Yeah,
with that.
mm-mm. Nix that right away. I would, regardless of the spirits in the library, I would be in the library because I hate being outside. So,
Oh, I'd be making friends with the ghosts so quick.
I,
It'd be like, tell me about your life.
yeah. Would you rather have your favorite character betray you or your least favorite character save you?
I guess I would want to be saved. That's a hard one, but I'll go saved by my least favorite.
Would you rather your book's love interest be based on your worst ex or your best friend?
I don't wish my ex on anybody. So I guess my best friend.
And the last one is, would you rather have to handwrite every draft or edit with only voice to text dictation?
Oh no. The books are so long though. I guess I'd handwrite every draft.
Having used voice to text software, I would also handwrite every draft.
Yeah, I could just imagine them getting the names wrong and then I have to go fix it. I'll just handwrite it.
Yeah, especially with fantasy, because you would have to spell the name every single time it came up, because there's no way that it would save to the dictionary correctly, and it would always try to autocorrect it. I would.
I have no patience, so
No.
no. Hey, I've got decent handwriting, so I think that'll be fine.
It's fine. My arthritis will be fine. It's cool. It's cool.
Arthritis, I guess. I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah. And then our final round of questions. I call it the unhinged round, as I just kind of put random things in here. So we have, which character would absolutely ruin a group project and why?
Finn, totally Finn, because he wouldn't do it until the lesson came. And he would just show up and be like, oh, I'll just punch him, it'll be fine, and just put no effort into things. Like I said, he doesn't like reading. Slow-paced things like unraveling mysteries aren't his cup of tea. So I can't imagine if somebody gave him like a science project or a book report to do, how that would go. So totally Finn.
Your main character has to win a space drag competition. What would their talent be?
Juggling batons on fire.
Lovely. Now I just have like a mental picture of like Fynneas, but in the little outfit that what's her name had on in Miss Congeniality when she.
And I want to put it out there. Obviously, like not younger Finn because he's 12. That would be weird. But like older Finn from the later books, he's always described as looking like his mom and being pretty. So he would probably be a good drag queen if we had to have him in drag. Like he's a good looking kid, you know? And with his baton just up in the air, he'd be great. Everybody would love him.
Beautiful. Beautiful on fire drag queen Fynneas. Be beautiful. Where is my next question? It is, if you had to hand over creative control of the sequel to one of your characters, who would write the worst version and what would it be called?
I would probably say Holland. Mainly because it would stop being about Finn and it would become Holland's story. And it would probably be called, instead of Fynneas Fog, Blood in the Water, it'd probably be Holland Fog. That time I had a very bad year.
And my last official question, which I've decided goes into every single interview from here on out, is your book gets adapted into a Muppets movie. Who plays who? And perhaps most importantly, who is the only human character?
Okay, well Mariah, and he would be played by Tim Curry, obviously. Of course. He's described, just so we're clear, he looks and acts nothing like Tim Curry, but after seeing Tim Curry in a Muppets movie, he would be Mariah, and he would be Tim Curry. I think we would have two Kermits. So like good Kermit and like bizarro Kermit as
Hmm.
Colin and Finn. Um, Miss Piggy was a Muppet, right?
Yep.
I'm trying to think. It's been a very long time since I've seen the Muppets. I guess Godric would be Miss Piggy because he's excitable and very dramatic, and he's always like, "Oh, what are you doing? No, what is this?" Oh my god, what are the blue one? Gonzo?
Gonzo.
Maybe Finn would be more Gonzo than Kermit, and Holland could just be Kermit. So yeah, we've got a weird thing going on. I now recognize as I'm saying this out loud that my main character doesn't give off main character energy, just chaos tornado that screams and cries. I don't remember any of the other Muppets.
Well, there's Rizzo the rat, Sam the eagle, Rolf the dog, Animal, of course,
Oh,
Smash Mouth.
Animal. Yeah. Oh crap. I feel like Finn also kind of gives Animal energy. I'm painting a beautiful picture of my protagonist. I recognize that. Um, because there's an ensemble cast, so I feel like they could all be the minor Muppets, and then Finn would be the same voice, but he would just cycle through the personalities of Kermit, Gonzo, and Animal, and then yeah, Holland would just be regular Kermit, and then Godric would be Miss Piggy.
And finally, I ask this of all of our guests because books take a whole lot of people to get out into the world. Is there anyone that you would like to thank today, from agents to editors, publishers and writing friends?
That's a loaded question. I don't have an agent or a manager, so I would say thank you to myself. And I guess they're kind of in the world with me because I've dragged them into this. Thank you to my parents for being the presidents of my fan club and cheering me on. Thank you to my editor for book 1 and 2. It was a very nice experience, and I appreciated the input I got from her. I don't have the rest of a formal team. I kind of wear all the hats. I am the artist, author, marketing, PR person myself, but thank you to my parents for supporting this insane adventure. And I guess I'm going to qualify my boyfriend as being part of my professional team because I make him read what I write and I bounce off ideas to him. So he's kind of was it like a beta reader without reading it, because we'll be driving and I'll be like, and what do you think about this? And he's like, oh my God, I don't have context. I haven't gotten that far yet. But he's a good sport, and he told me that orchids don't have thorns, so now I have that fun fact ready to go. Except in my book, they definitely do. So yeah, thank you to just the people around me who put up with me asking insane questions to them all day about fantasy worlds that they're not involved in.
That's People don't understand how important those people are, that like we just bounce the most insane things off of them and just be like, hey, what do you think of a clockwork peacock? And it's just like absolutely no context given with
Exactly,
the
like
rest of that, and they have to give us feedback, so they deserve thanks.
yeah, I ask people all the time, not like random people, just so I'm not a psycho, but I ask the people around me, and that one's a much nicer question. I've come up with like, at what point do you think it's okay to like burn an entire family's house? And people are like, what? And I'm like, no, it's gonna come up. But like, I just need to know if maybe it's too extreme a reaction. Or like, how do you feel about talking worms that are 6 feet tall and wear outfits? Like, what are our thoughts on this? Is this fun or creepy? So yeah, no, the people who are around you who let you have the time and the grace and the patience for you to, let you ask them insane questions. Those are people you need in your life when you're going to be a professional art kind of person of any kind.
Yes, very, very true. So thank you so much for joining us today. And for those of you watching the live or listening in the future when I do get this edited, just know that you could have added your questions to this interview too. Every member on the Booked All Night Discord server can ask our guests a question. And we'll be hosting some more big giveaways in the future as we hit our little milestones, one of which is hitting 100 members on the Discord server. Visit bookedallnight.co today to join the server, shop our merch, and buy books from today's interviews and more. Until next time, my little Libranauts, keep reading, keep those ideas in orbit, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.